Hello, and welcome to our Be Human Rights Confident video series. My name is Anna Trippinell. I'm a business and human rights advisor and founder of Human Level. In this video, we will delve into the concept of a just transition, what it means, where the concept comes from, and who the people are at the heart of the just transition. Let's unpick this word. First, the transition. We are in a transition to a net zero future. We have warmed the planet by 1.1 degrees as compared to pre-industrial times, and we are on course for much more significant warming. According to Climate Action Tracker, we are on course to heating the planet by 2.7 degrees above pre-industrial levels in the year 2100, or perhaps by 2.4 degrees if governments' plans, their nationally determined contributions, NDCs, are complied with. So, the world is in transition mode. We need to drastically reduce the amount of greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, etc., we emit into the atmosphere. The Paris Agreement of 2015 sets our benchmark. We are aiming to stay within 1.5 degrees of warming above pre-industrial levels, or at the very most, within 2 degrees of warming. To remain consistent with 1.5 degrees, global net human-caused emissions of carbon dioxide would need to fall by about 45% from 2010 levels by 2030, and they would need to reach net zero at around 2050. Net zero entails drastic reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, with any remaining emissions being offset, for instance through carbon capture, storage technology, or reforestation. This will mean significant transitions in industries. Energy will need to decarbonize, materials will need to go circular, food will need to be produced sustainably, and the list goes on. Okay. So we know why we are talking about the transition part of just transition. What does the just part mean? It means that as we transition, we need to place people front and center of this transition. The just transition recognizes that there will be winners and losers from the climate transformation. There will be winners. Some people will be able to access jobs in the new green economy. Some people will make money investing in new needed technologies, etc. But there will also be losers from the transition. Here we are talking about people who will lose out because of the climate transition. This is different from speaking about people who will lose out because of the climate warming itself, which is the subject of another video. Let's look at it this way. Companies are starting to take a number of actions to reduce their emissions. This is referred to as mitigation. Mitigation actions include divesting out of coal and oil extraction, transitioning into renewable energy sources, mining minerals needed for renewable energy, and increasing the use of recycled materials. How can people lose out as a result of these mitigation actions? Some will be impacted as we transition out of so-called dirty industries, and others will be impacted as we transition in to greener ones. When it comes to the transition out, some people will lose their jobs. The International Energy Agency finds that in the new net zero scenario, 5 million people will lose their jobs, those working in oil, gas, and coal. Yes, there will also be 14 million new jobs created in clean energy, but those new jobs will not benefit the same regions and communities as where the jobs are being eliminated. There will also be impacts on communities that are dependent on the success of oil, gas, and coal companies. In a number of places, these companies' taxes are helping finance the public services present in these communities, schools, hospitals, etc. So we will start to see an impact on the financing of public services as tax revenues are withdrawn. When it comes to the transition in, we are starting to see impacts already, and these will accelerate. Some people will lose access to their land. We need land to install wind turbines and solar panels. The demand for these renewable energies is rapidly rising, and therefore the demand for land is rapidly rising. We have already started to see communities and indigenous peoples being displaced to make way for renewables. Some workers will end up in situations of forced labour or child labour. It's not because an activity is green that it is respectful of the people within it, although we may need polysilicon to make solar panels. Polysilicon is known to be sourced by workers in forced labour in China. Although we may need cobalt to make batteries for new electric cars, most cobalt comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo and is often associated with child labour in mines. Although we may need to resort to recycled plastic to reduce the carbon footprint of plastic packaging, this may in turn increase children acting as waste pickers in hazardous conditions. Some customers will be excluded. Some products and services needed for the transition, electric cars, green transportation, efficient appliances, may be more expensive. This can lead to the exclusion of low-income households and communities. Some charging points for electric cars may make it challenging for disabled drivers to recharge their cars, leading to their exclusion from roads or subject to fines for not using electric cars. All of these examples relate to the mitigation measures that will accelerate over the next few years. And as we can see in these examples, it tends to be the most vulnerable who will lose out the most. Those already in precarious situations: women, children, indigenous peoples, and lower income communities. We will also start to see an increase in adaptation measures. These are basically measures companies are putting in place to adapt to climate change. For instance, they may relocate factories. They may commission new barriers to protect their sites from rising ocean levels, or they may switch to sourcing new raw materials that are more heat resistant. These adaptation measures will also have impacts on people in the company's operations, value chain, as well as those working for relevant business partners. So, in essence, the just in the term just transition means considering these people who could be harmed and integrating them fully into the transition. This is about switching the tables so that these people become full actors of their destiny. This is about ensuring the transition is rooted in respect for people's human rights and based on strong social dialogue, that the transition happens in a way that ensures the creation of green and decent jobs and thriving, resilient communities without leaving anyone behind. Let's wrap up now with a brief overview of how this term has evolved. The term just transition originated in the trade union movement in the 1970s in an effort to promote health and safety in the transition out of coal. The concept initially focused on workers in the coal sector. Governmental actors started to recognize the term and its application to the climate field in 2010, COP16 in Cancun, where the just transition was referenced. The International Labour Organization, ILO, then adopted its 2015 guidelines on just transition towards environmentally sustainable economies and societies for all. These guidelines reflected the idea of a transition into green and decent jobs aligned with sustainable development. The preamble to the Paris Agreement, COP21, recognized the need for a transition to a net zero economy that took into account a just transition of the workforce and the creation of decent work and quality jobs. This worker-focused definition was expanded upon at COP24 in 2018, when the Solidarity and Just Transition Silesia Declaration referenced the community dimensions of the just transition. And most recently, one of the outcome papers of COP26 supporting the conditions for a just transition internationally, further recognise the need for governments to promote decent work and economic prosperity and inclusion, especially for vulnerable communities in the transition to net zero. And there you have it, the people at the heart of the just transition and what the just transition means in a nutshell. We will delve into what just transition means in practice for companies in another video. Thank you for watching and see you soon.